evening, everyone, and welcome to the Royals Rundown podcast presented by Royals Review. It's Jacob Milham here once again with my lovely co-host, the one and only Jeremy Greco. Jeremy, how we feeling tonight? It's another Wednesday episode, but man, I'm just beat.
Yeah, Wednesdays are my roughest day usually at my day job, and today was no exception in that regard. So I feel you, but I just have to just share a little bit with the audience that you are an incredibly lucky man that your wife puts up with you based on the stuff that happens before we start recording. I'm just saying. Yeah.
Well, listen, it was kind of a hectic day. I got home late and I was like, okay, I have about 45 minutes to get ready for the podcast, right? Well, our dog's water dish broke, so I had to help clean that up a little bit, and then the sink was backed up, so I had to work on that before the podcast. Thankfully, now Honey is here. She's sitting next to me working on her Disney Castle Lego set. So
which is just amazing.
She really is.
Peak goals.
I know, right? This is just lovely marriage for you, and I love
behavior.
It. He said it was peak goals, honey. But as much as I would talk about my wife, we are here to talk about the Kansas City Royals. If you want, I would say pure and unfiltered Kansas City Royals content, but that's not what you get at Royals Review. Okay, you get movie reviews. My favorite to throw in Jeremy's face is the Sonic the Hedgehog 2 review.
I'm just saying, there was some baseball in there.
There was. I emphasize some. Okay, some might be a little generous, but no, listen, if you want the best Kansas City Royals content around, you got to go check out royalsreview.com. The whole crew over there keeps you up to date on Facebook, on X, and on the .com. Can't stress how great the community is over there. It is nothing if not passionate Royals fans. Are we all passionate about the same things? No. Like some people apparently are very passionately against the Quick Trip uniform patches. Boy. Which
there's so many more uniform problems to worry about than those patches, like the see-through pants.
Yeah. Yeah, nobody wants to talk about see-through pants or Fanatics taking over, making the jerseys.
Talk about the see-through pants, Jacob. Are you not on Twitter?
No,
I'm not. Call it X.
Yeah, I'm not
so
on
maybe
Twitter.
You're confused.
I'm not on Twitter. I'm on X. Yes, but
everyone's talking about the see-through pants.
Oh boy. Listen, the last thing that I knew about the bad uniform stuff was like how bad the Cardinals uniforms look.
Yeah.
Now, like they look so
bad.
Yeah. Oh,
and the pants are see-through. Like, I'm not exaggerating.
I have to look this up, but I am a little scared to Google baseball see-through pants.
I wouldn't Google that. I would just kind of like browse baseball Twitter. You'll find it.
Okay. All right. Thank goodness. I'm not even gonna. No, you won't Google it. I'm not gonna chance going on baseball Reddit to browse that. I'll stick
just check out here. Look up Shohei Ohtani's spring training photo, and you'll get a good idea of what that's looking like.
Let's see here. We are Googling. Oh my.
Meanwhile, you were telling me before the show while you're Googling, I'm gonna throw this out there. First of all, the Quick Trip patches, not a big deal, y'all. It's advertising. It's not hurting anyone. Just relax. Second of all, as Jacob was kind of pointing out to me, it's part of an initiative that's supposed to help with, I think you said literacy in the Kansas City area. So it's actually not just Quick Trip gets advertising, Royals get money. There's also a benefit to the community. So that's more than you can honestly expect from most team patches like this. So I think it's if anything, it's good news, but mostly it's just neutral. So don't get worked up about it.
No, there are. I know everyone's kind of on edge with the stadium stuff, but these patches. One, I'm sure like 20 games into the season, you're not even going to notice them that much anymore. It's just going to be there.
Yep.
And truthfully, like the Royals are kind of behind the advertising curve. There are so many other teams out there doing much more egregious advertising. It's not just the jersey patches; it's projecting graphics onto the pitchers' mounds during
I
games.
forgot about that one. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
I know. And listen,
I find the advertisements behind home plate to be much more distracting than any like sleeve patch is ever going to be.
I agree. And for such a passionate soccer town as Kansas City is, it is crazy that everyone's so mad when the Royals do something that soccer does at an exponential scale. It's just not that big of a deal, and it goes to a good cause. What is to not like about it?
Yeah.
And even
people will be like, "Oh, purity of the sport." The uniforms again are already really effed up, y'all.
Yeah,
come on.
Purity of the sport, my ass. We've talked so much on this podcast about baseball is a business right now. Get with the times. It has been for a long time. Even if it hasn't been explicit, it's been a business for a very long time. And I'm just glad that some of this is going to go back to the Kansas City community, better people's lives. I was reading the KMBC article about this, talking about how far behind in literacy some of the Kansas City youth are. I think it was like at third grade, only 31% of students are reading at their grade level or beyond it.
Wow.
That's really, really bad, to say the least. And literacy is tied to a lot of negative effects later on in life. So,
lack of literacy, you mean?
Yes.
Not like you can read books, things are bad for you.
No, sorry, lack of literacy. Thank you, Jeremy.
I just want to make sure we're very clear about what we're advocating for.
Yeah. Read books, okay? Stay in school, read books, go to Quick Trip. That's what the podcast is about.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are our core values.
Yes, obviously. So that was kind of the big social media storm of Royals news today. As you know, spring training baseball is just a couple of days away at this point, which I think that's what everyone should be excited for. We got the broadcast schedule. I think it's only like 2 or 3 of the games aren't going to be covered.
We've got a week's worth of starting pitchers scheduled for us.
Yeah. It's
Daniel Lynch gets the Cactus League opening day assignment.
Ooh, is there an opening day starter controversy, Jeremy? Is Daniel Lynch going to come out of nowhere?
No, like I said, no. The pitchers who show up on the first game don't matter. Look at the lineup, though. That should be interesting.
Exactly.
Especially what I'll be watching for is Adam Frazier versus Michael Massey. Should give us an idea who's the front runner for second base.
I like that. And we are going to talk more about spring training later on in the episode. We have some predictions for y'all. Going to talk about who we think will be the spring training MVP, the prospect who stands out the most, a player who doesn't have MLB playing time. Want to clarify that. And is there going to be a non-roster invite who makes the opening day roster? Because there's a track record for that. But first, we have to talk about someone who won't be in spring training at all, and that is the one and only Eric Hosmer, who announced his retirement this afternoon. And man, 13 seasons, a much longer career than I originally calculated out.
Yeah,
it's pretty good.
Kind of disappeared after he left the Royals, so that's understandable.
Yeah, and it's crazy to think that the Padres still owe him millions. They still owe him $26 million.
One interesting thing I saw on Twitter is that, and I think as Royals fans who are up on the stats, we kind of see Eric Hosmer as being kind of overrated.
Yeah.
That said, I saw an interesting tweet. I think Dan Zimborski retweeted it. That kind of highlighted that, he had a few good years in there. He had a peak of a handful of years that was not awful. Obviously after he left Kansas City, he kind of struggled, but he also won a World Series ring. And so the kind of consensus was that, he wasn't as good as maybe his reputation, but he still had a career that the vast majority of baseball players, even Major League Baseball players, would envy.
Yeah, that is certainly the case. Sorry, I had myself muted there and didn't realize it there for a second. And I think it's a little ironic with all the issues of Scott Boras's clients this offseason, and Hosmer was one of his clients at a certain point, and just talking about he brings so much talent and generational. It wasn't generational wealth, but Boras was talking about how great a talent Hosmer was, despite the analytics. And Hosmer had the career.
I thought he said that when Hosmer signed with the Padres, right?
Yeah, that's what he did.
Okay. I thought you were for a second. I was confused. I thought you were saying that Boras said that like recently.
No, it was right when he signed with the Padres.
Yeah.
I'm so pleased with our modern day analytics are proven wrong. The prestige he brings to the game is valued. And it went on from there. Only 0.3 FWAR in his 596 games for the Padres. Absolutely insane.
Not great.
Nope, not great, Bob. Not great in the slightest. But he did also announce his next step, talking about that he's actually going to be partnering with a lot of former Royals, Royals minor leaguer Anthony Saratelli, and he's also going to co-host a podcast with Peter Moylan. And let's see here, it's called Moonball Media. The first project is the Diggin' Deep podcast. I need to do some more research on, like what are they going to do, but it's still their first project. So it's good that he's taken his financial earnings and investing in another venture beyond baseball. It was, I don't know. I think the calls for him to come back to Kansas City thankfully kind of died down in 2023. I remember when he was a free agent, folks were calling for him. You remember that?
Yeah, I didn't have much going at first base. He's a friendly face. I understand that. I also saw one person, at least on Twitter, who was very upset, very angry that the Royals were so focused on their new stadium that they didn't sign Eric Hosmer to a one-day deal so he could retire as a Royal. And I just got to tell y'all, that comes from the player. It doesn't come from the team. The player goes to the team and he's like, hey, can I sign a one-day deal and I'll retire? When Loking, because the team doesn't know when you're going to retire.
Yeah.
They don't know. No. How are they? They're supposed to just be like, call you up, be like, you retiring? You want to sign with us? You retiring? So if he didn't retire as a Royal, like that's not the Royals' fault. He just decided didn't want to deal with it. He could still sign a one-day contract and retire like Locaine did last year.
Yeah.
There's nothing stopping him from unretiring and re-retiring as a Royal. And we all know that we love Eric Hosmer in Kansas City, to some degree or another. Again, I wasn't ever a huge Eric Hosmer fan just because I felt like he was a little overrated, and that's not his fault. I was just mad at the people who were just unreasonably in love with him. That's how it goes.
Yeah.
But he was absolutely a huge part of that 2015 World Series team, and even of the 2014 World Series appearing team. So glad he was in Kansas City. Also glad the Royals didn't outbid the Padres for him. Both of those things are true.
Yep. Looking back, that was a big money deal that thankfully the Royals did miss out on. Oh, but congrats to him. Best of luck in his next step. But we are going to keep it moving with not another former Royals player, but a player who is making some waves for saying all the wrong things. Anthony Rendon.
Anthony Rendon.
Yes, the lovable and rich Los Angeles Angels position player. I think he's at third base technically. He hasn't played enough in the past few years to know.
That is his position of record. Yes.
Okay. All right. And why we're bringing this up is I think it's kind of twofold, and I'm probably a little hypocritical. Because I do right now, I consider my job a job. It is a form of income for me. It's not a top priority, and it's just a way to make a living.
Yep.
But Rendon came out and explicitly said that, literally word for word. It's never been a top priority for me. This is a job. I do this to make a living. And people were just up in arms about it, because this goes, we have all the spring training talk at this point. Hey, this guy's in the best shape of his life. You should hear the ball coming off of his bat, and he's going to be a big player to watch in 2024. And then you have Anthony Rendon, coming in and like, this, I don't want to be here. I'm just here to make money. Jeremy, what did you think about this statement?
Yeah, so it is, like you said, kind of a little bit of a double-edged sword situation where I appreciate him being open and honest, because so few baseball players are. And I appreciate his kind of approach to it. That's like, this is a job. It's not my life. Come on, y'all. Because I think that's how most of us feel about our jobs. And I think it's reasonable. And I very seriously doubt he's the only baseball player who feels that way. But we also all know from our own experiences, I think there is at least some element of jealousy. There's obviously an element of, I root for you to play baseball for my team. How dare you not be as excited for my team as I am? Sure. But I think there's also some jealousy that's like, we can't talk about our jobs like that. Like, if my boss asks me, like, are you dedicated to this job? I can't be like, no. I got to be like, oh, absolutely. I'll work overtime. I'll study for an exam in my free hours that benefits you. And I think a lot of people are in that position where we just we have to play the media game the same way. We don't do it in front of a microphone, but we do it in front of our bosses and our coworkers. So it's a little bit frustrating that he's able to get away with that. But at the same time, like, I don't think he's wrong for feeling the way that he feels. Yeah. He's just maybe not the person I would have chosen to share that sentiment, because of, he's already been a disappointment and people are already frustrated with him. So then to have that guy be like, yeah, I don't care though, just, it puts a bad taste in your mouth. And I understand why people are upset about it. At the same time as I understand that, like, this is his reality, and I don't think he's wrong for feeling that way.
Well, and I remember earlier on this offseason, he also made the comment about 162 games being too long. And when I sat there and thought about that comment, my initial reaction was, how dare he suggest that? I love baseball, and I love watching baseball in that 162 game slate. But like Honey just said, I'm not thinking of the players. That is a very strenuous 162 games. It's a lot, and it's not wrong for a player to say, hey, I kind of don't want to play all these games.
And the other thing you have to remember, and I'm sure you remember this, Jacob, but I'm saying this for maybe some of our listeners, is that it is that some people will feel like, well, they only work 162 days a year. That is not correct.
Nope.
And I'm not just talking about spring training. They have to train year round in order to maintain the athletic, physical performance, become the physical specimens that they are, and to achieve these goals. And so you've got to remember that, like, when they're talking about 162 games being too long, they're not just saying I want to work less. It's like the work on those days is especially hard, and there's no room for a break, because you got to do your workouts and then play the game, right? So there's a lot that they have to do. This is not just adults playing a kid's game. There is a lot of work and effort that goes into this, even for the guys who don't care that much.
Yep, exactly. So it's I wanted us to talk about it at least, because I know that we would understand both sides of it. Yeah. And not surprisingly, the mass reaction was, how dare he say that, and like that was the wrong thing to say. And people can have their opinion. and they'll keep it moving. Anthony Rendon has not made any friends with the Angels fan base, and Kevin O'Brien, do you know him, Royals reporter?
Yeah.
He brought up a good point. It's like, well, how much of that is it from Rendon the player or being in the Angels organization?
I was just gonna say, like, if I played for the Angels, I might not be passionate about baseball anymore either.
Yeah, people think the Royals have a bad situation. You go out there to Los Angeles, and things are pretty rough, to say the least.
Yeah.
Oh, but Jeremy, let's see. Wasn't there? Yeah, Steven Strasburg. Let's talk about him real quick.
And then, so here's the other side of the coin, right?
Yeah.
And so the interesting thing to me about Steven Strasburg, and let me just lay out this situation real quick for everyone who's unfamiliar with it. He can't pitch. Everyone acknowledges he cannot pitch. He is done as a pitcher, right? And he has a guaranteed contract. And usually what happens in this situation is a team says, listen, retire, we'll pay out your contract because it is guaranteed. We don't have a choice on that matter. And that way we get our 40-man roster spot and you go do, live your life and thank you for, destroying your body in order to help us, in Strasburg's case, help us win a World Series. And if you've been following this since last year, there was a whole drama last year where the Nationals announced that he was retiring and they were going to have a ceremony and he was going to take a position as an advisor to the team and blah, 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 blah. And then it all got canceled. And it basically turns out that they can't come to an agreement on how much of their contract they're going to pay him. And it's just a shame because I'm sure a lot of people are taking the team side. They're like, well, he can't pitch. Why should they pay him? And I'll just go back to what I literally just kind of said a few seconds ago. He destroyed his body for them. Mm-hmm. His body will never function correctly again because of what he did to help that team. Mm-hmm. This is this is a risk that's more common in the more physical sports like basketball and football and soccer to a degree. It doesn't happen as often in baseball, but it does happen where your body is literally ruined. And this is the only body Steven Strasburg gets.
Yep.
And he gave it to the Nationals.
That is
louder. and to sit there and be like, well, he doesn't deserve to get paid for that is just it's just insane. It's cruel. And this is what they signed a guaranteed contract.
Yep. Guaranteed
contract comes with that penalty of like, you got to pay the guy. And so I think about like when teams are like, oh, players should sign these player friendly deals and they'll make up the money later and blah, blah, blah. You never know. This is also, I think, an example of why someone like Bobby Witt Jr. might sign a deal that everyone's like, well, he could make so much more money later. And this proves that he loves Kansas City. No, it proves that he wants to make sure that he does get paid. That if he has a career-ending injury, it doesn't prevent him from getting paid. Because the Royals, no team is going to give him, if he loses his leg next year or something ridiculous where he can't play anymore, no team is going to be like, well, we would have given you $400 million if you'd been healthy and good, but you lost your leg and we'll still give you that money. No, it's not going to happen. They're not going to pay you. So you got to get your money while you can.
Exactly.
And sometimes you bet on yourself. Sometimes you take the security, and those are options that you can take, but it doesn't, this is why I was like, it doesn't prove that he loves Kansas City. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. I don't know, but it doesn't prove it. No. But to just circle back to Steven Strasburg, and then I'll finally let you have a word in edgewise there, Jacob. It's just it's a damn shame that the Nationals have chosen to treat their World Series hero in this way, to just be so disrespectful and to try and renege on their deal. And I think I actually, now that I realize, forgot to mention kind of what's come up now, which is that the team is expecting him to report to spring training knowing he can't contribute, but they're just like, well, if we got to pay you, you got to show up, which is it's nonsense. It's bull hockey. So yeah, you talk now, Jacob.
Okay.
Bullshit.
Katie. Oh, goodness gracious. So, for a little bit more background on the situation, this was sent to both MLB leadership and the MLB PA. So, both sides for the ownership and the player side of this. And both of them came together and said, "Hey, it's up to the team and the player to resolve this. We're not gonna hop in on this." And that seems like a cop out. I'm a little frustrated that one side didn't come down and say and finally decide it. But it's just a negotiation, and at the end of the day, both sides are wanting concessions. And I do want to quote this from MASN, the big sports provider out here on the East Coast. They said major league contracts are guaranteed. A player who voluntarily retires prior to the deal expiring forfeits any remaining salary he's owed. Right. The exception is if a baseball-related injury forces his premature retirement, which is what is going on in this case. And we got one toxic sports owner out of Washington already, and this just isn't a good look for the Washington Nationals or organization at all. So I'm sad that he's going through this. Steven Strasburg, the generational talent. People forget how great he was in the 2010s. He was amazing, and I hope that they figure it out, and I hope that this doesn't get drug on for longer. But it's already been a year at this point. Like, he didn't report to spring training last year because he can't.
No, they didn't ask him to last year because that's generally how this is done. Is they go, yeah, you can't play. I'm not going to make you show up to spring training. What are you going to do?
Yeah, you're gonna do nothing. You're just gonna sit there, and that's why they wanted him to be an advisor on the team, is so that he could advise players. And apparently they won't even give him that grace anymore. So that's really frustrating. All right, Jeremy, now that we got all that negativity out of the way, let's go ahead and look towards the hope that spring training brings.
Wait, one more thing I want to talk about before we get to actual spring training.
Oh boy.
Good Royals news. Kelvin Herrera was elected mayor of his hometown, which is good for him. Congratulations on finding something to do with yourself after your baseball career. Craig Calcaterra had an amazingly funny joke in his newsletter this morning. He said, I assume that if Kelvin cannot complete his term for any reason, that some combination of Wade Davis or Greg Holland will get the job done for him. So that was a good time. Congratulations to Kelvin Herrera. I hope it goes better for him than some other baseball players who have gotten into politics.
Yeah. Royals fans are unfortunately intimately aware with how that goes for Royals players. Yeah, next up, I'm predicting Wade Davis is going to be the mayor of Lake Wales, Florida, where he was raised. Population of 16,000. That seems like he can get some popularity vote on that.
Probably.
Yeah, congrats to Kelvin. Truthfully, that's something. If you weren't watching the Royals X feed, or if you weren't watching things on Royals Review, you would have missed it, honestly. So now let's get on to spring training. Yes. Thank you for bringing that up, Jeremy. I genuinely did forget about that.
Yeah.
It's by the time folks are listening to this, it's either going to be the next day when we release this on Thursday. It'll be the day following, or it'll be right before Royals kick off spring training action against the Texas Rangers down in Surprise Stadium. Jeremy, are you excited? Are we a little optimistic, ready for the return of baseball?
Always.
And it's like, I'm not having championship aspirations for the Royals. I am just glad that baseball is back. That's all it is.
I have to be super honest with you that the predictions are all in the mid 70s, I think, for wins. And that sounds okay to me. Like, that means that if I watch a game, there's a 50-50 chance that the Royals are going to win it. which is it's worth watching for me. Instead of it being like a 2-1 chance that they're gonna not win it, it's just like, hey, like they might compete. It might be fun. The pitching, especially because the pitching should be so much better this year that games should not be decided by like the second inning. We should be able to go, hey, this game is worth watching for a few innings. Okay, now it's out of hand. All right, now I'll go to bed.
Oh, now the bullpen blew it. Or, now Nick Prado struck out again.
Should be the strength this year, honestly.
I hope so. I
thought it was the best position group.
I thought it was going to be the strength last year. I had a lot of optimism about last year's bullpen. Scott Barlow came out there and started blowing saves left and right.
I got to tell you, Scott Barlow was not great in 2022. So if you thought he was going to be great last year, I don't know what you were thinking, buddy.
I wasn't thinking. That was my first problem.
I love Scott Barlow. He had some good years for the Royals. Consistency was never his deal. And it's gotten worse as time has gone on. It's how it goes for relievers.
Yep, that's just how it is. That's why you don't see a lot of relievers signed to extensions or anything like that. The MLB life for a reliever is not very long. Usually, there are always exceptions to that rule. And Royals fans will still get to see him. He plays for Cleveland now, right?
Yeah, I'm excited to see him. Honestly, sounds like a good opportunity to score some runs.
Yeah, it really does. Oh goodness! But I was sitting here thinking about like, okay, what should we predict? What should we focus on? Because the focus of spring training is not about wins and losses, so that's already out the window. There's no standings or nothing like that. That's not the point of spring training. It's about who makes their case for the 2024 season after opening day. That's when the real impact comes. So, Jeremy, I want to start off by predicting who you think the spring training MVP will be for the Kansas City Royals. Who's your pick and why?
I'm going to give you Nelson Velasquez.
Ooh, I like it.
It seems to me like for several years now, because the Arizona environment is so conducive to home run balls and to power, that guys who are not necessarily batting average guys, but who are power guys can really shine. And that describes Nelson Velasquez. Now, obviously, he has plenty of power for a regular major league stadium, for Kauffman Stadium even. But I think he's likely to have a very good spring training where every time he gets a hold of a ball, it goes out of the stadium. So I think people will look at him and be like, oh yeah, he's going to do exactly what he did last year. Maybe he will. But again, as I've kind of mentioned last week, don't necessarily like, if you see some power numbers, if you see some high batting averages, don't necessarily assume that's going to translate to anything.
Yeah. And so my pick for spring training MVP, I think is going to greatly benefit from the Arizona desert. And that's Maikel Garcia.
Okay.
He was absolutely electric down in Venezuela, a 424 batting average and 576 slugging in 29 games down in Venezuela. He was playing with his cousin, Ronald Acuna Jr. And honestly, when I saw him make plays, there was a lot of passion there, and there was a lot of flair that we didn't see at times during his Kansas City Royals tenure. And it's crazy to think that he is heading towards his first MLB opening day. He played most of the season last year, but he wasn't on the opening day roster. So there's still a lot of room for growth with Maikel Garcia, and that power is where we need to see that growth. So I'm hoping that with the climate down there, that the balls have a little bit more loft. He gets a little bit better ISO, a little bit better slugging, and hopefully puts some over the fence.
One thing that I was reading about his stint in Venezuela was the walks. He walked a ton.
He did.
So that's what really excites me about that, even more than the power numbers. Because if he can add some walks to his game like that, even without the power, he could be very valuable.
Exactly. A 543 on base percentage in 99 at bats.
More likely to reach base than not.
Yeah.
Pretty good time.
It is. It's an insane time, and I'm not saying that's going to directly translate to MLB.
No, of course not.
No, not saying that at all. I'm
but
just
if he
saying
could get his OBP up to like 350, whoo, we'd be cooking with some gas.
Exactly. And I'm about to put out an article for Kings of Kaufman evaluating all the leadoff options for the Royals heading into opening day. And I think Maikel Garcia,
the options.
There are some options outside of Maikel Garcia that I want to put out there.
All right. I'll have to check this article out.
But I
have my doubts.
As you should, because I make it very, very clear that Maikel Garcia, he is the incumbent and he should be the favorite to be the leadoff on opening day.
If Maikel Garcia is who he was last year, I'm not even sure he should be leading off.
Ooh. Well, listen, he wasn't. Yeah, I was about to.
He started off very well. He was not good by the end of the season, and maybe he was just worn out because baseball season is long.
Mm-hmm.
It happens, but it'll be interesting to see if that winter ball stint will show some help spur some improvements this year.
There you go. I like that. So this time last year, Maikel Garcia was still, I think he was a consensus top 5 prospect sort of guy in the Royals farm system. And there are some prospects that are going to get a chance to stand out down in Arizona. I'm thinking of guys like Carter Jensen. He was a non-roster invite. I'm not saying he's going to break with the opening day roster, but at least he's a high prospect that is going to get some MLB play. And even last year, we did see some prospects have some action in those double headers. You got to split up the teams, go 2 separate directions. And I remember it made waves when Gavin Cross made his spring training debut with the Royals. So I am curious, Jeremy. I know you're not a prospect hound. I know you are admittedly not one. But when you look at who could make a splash in spring training, is there a prospect that stands out to you?
Tyler Gentry.
Yeah.
The prospect guys that I follow, like you said, I'm not a prospect hound, but I do follow some. It's kind of like staying at a Holiday Inn Express. They love him. So I feel like this is his opportunity to show that the Hunter Renfroe signing was maybe not the best move the team could have made. I really hope he does, because as we've kind of discussed ad nauseum during the off season, the outfield is clearly the weakest position group on the team. So to have someone like Gentry step up and look like even a competent starter could be huge. Because you have to think that at least one of Velasquez, Melendez, and Renfroe are not going to live up to the hype. Just because they all have so many question marks, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can hope. There's reasons to believe that any of them could succeed, but for all of them to succeed would be very unlikely. So if somebody like a Tyler Gentry can force the issue and be like, listen, you could be a good team if you bench one of these guys or demote one of these guys or trade one of these guys and stick me in the outfield, would be huge for this team.
It would. It really would. And I'm really hoping Tyler Gentry just hits that ceiling and stays there for the Kansas City Royals. Really, really need a trustworthy outfielder on the 2024 roster. I think that's the correct word for that. My pick is going to be Chandler Champlain, who is a non-roster invite. The 24-year-old righty, if you recall, the Royals got him from the Yankees. Shoot, two years ago now, almost 2 years ago.
He came over in the trade for Benintendi.
Yeah,
about a year and a half ago.
Man, time flies, dude. Time absolutely flies. He made it up to Double-A last year, so it's not a sure thing that he's going to push in the rotation or in the bullpen or anything like that. There is a lot to like about him coming off the right. He has a great fastball, pairs with a good slider. I'm pretty high on his curveball. It has an above average spin, and it's got some good speed to it, and just a really good bite there at the end. So I'm pretty high on him flashing in Arizona, and I'm hoping that he at least starts off the season in AAA Omaha. I think he's ready for that jump. So let's see here. Looking at other spring training stuff, and when I thought about the non-roster invite, I was like, oh yeah, who's the non-roster invite who stood out last year? I hate to say it, but Jackie Bradley Jr., the illustrious Royal, was a non-roster invite. But at the very end of it all, he was kind of the last center fielder standing when Kyle Isbell went down and Diego Hernandez went down and Drew Waters went down. I was like, well, it's either Nate Eaton or Jackie Bradley Jr. And the Royals decided to keep both to start off the year. And was it a great tenure? No. But Jackie Bradley Jr. did get to keep his MLB career going, and he at least had an opportunity thanks to luck and thanks to him performing well in spring training. Now, I want to say this correctly. The non-roster invite does have a lot of MLB experience on it, albeit not flashy MLB experience. It's just experience. They have time in the majors. Do you think any non-roster invite will make the opening day roster, or who has the best chance at least?
Honestly, I don't see any non-roster invitees making the team this year. I feel like the rotation is pretty set with a good stack of guys who are already on the 40-man behind them. Ditto for the bullpen. And the non-roster invitees just aren't interesting this year.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people are very excited about Josh Lester, I believe, or is it John Lester? John, who's this Mizzou first baseman guy?
Yeah.
A lot of people are excited about him, huh?
It's not John, it's Josh.
Josh Lester, okay. That's what I thought. But then I doubted myself. I should never doubt myself, Jacob.
No, you never should. Never
so should. I know some people are excited about him. I think some people were excited about Matt Beatty. I know the Royals were really excited about Matt Beatty last year. Obviously, that didn't really turn into anything.
No.
There's nobody that looks like, oh, this is a real bounce back guy, or anybody that has like a real high prospect pedigree. I think at the beginning of the offseason, I predicted that Bubba Thompson would make the roster. He's been cut and signed by like half a dozen teams since then.
Bad.
So obviously he's no longer in the picture. There's just nobody I tried, I promise, because I know you told me that this was the thing we were going to do. I can't see anyone making the team as a non-roster invitee right now. Not that the team is like, oh, they're so good, there's no room for anybody, but just like because of the way everything shakes out.
Yeah.
Okay. I will clarify, if there's an injury at catcher, Sandy Leone makes the team. How about that? I'll give you that one.
You think so?
Yeah.
Sandy
Leone is the third catcher on this team right now. He's just not on the roster.
Okay. I was actually going to go I was going to go with catcher too, but I was going to go with Logan Porter.
Okay.
I think that if there's an injury at catcher, he has the best option. And I'm not a Freddie Fermin hater. I'm just not like absolutely sold on him. And it's not like he's even a long-term option. The guy's almost 29 years old.
Yeah.
So he's got plenty of experience behind the dish. I get it, but so does Logan Porter. And I think Porter has a similar, if not better, hit tool. So I think with a good Arizona stint, he can maybe push his way onto the opening day roster. But it's like you said, it's a long shot. There doesn't, as we sit here before spring training begins, we don't see a non-roster invitee having a real shot. Could that change in 2 weeks? Sure. Injuries happen, underperforming, overperforming, things like that. That all happens. But as we sit right now, there's just not a hole that a non-roster invitee can plug on the Royals 40-man roster right now.
And the positions are not necessarily set, but they're set enough that I don't think an amazing spring training performance is going to be enough to earn you a roster spot over anybody. Again, I'm thinking of like Josh Lester. Like, no matter how good he is, he's not going to make the roster over Vinny Pasquantino, no matter how bad Vinny is, because Vinny's got a track record of being pretty good. So you're going to give him that that benefit of the doubt.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not going to cut, like a Nick Prado off of your 40 man to put even Nick Prado where he is. You're not going to cut him off of your 40 man to put Josh Lester on. So,
I mean, maybe, hopefully.
I don't think you're gonna. I don't think it's gonna happen.
I don't think it is either. But golly, if there's a guy whose 40-man roster spot should be on shaky ground heading into Arizona, it needs to be Nick Prado. Golly, it was rough last year, wasn't it?
He started off so good, and we were all singing his praises and like, oh, he's finally figured it out, and just didn't end well.
No, it did not. And I'll be the first to admit it. It was like a 28 game stretch where he was just great, and I loved it. I was like, man,
I was very excited. I was all in. I was ready to declare him like the first baseman of the future. Vinny Pasquantino could be the DH.
My man got 345 plate appearances and struck out 40% of the time.
I'm sorry. Unless you're Joey Gallo, that will not play.
Nope. Not at all.
And there is one Joey Gallo. Sorry.
Yep. And
there are not two.
He bounces around the league just about as much as Bubba Thompson does.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness gracious. Yeah,
he's also much better defensively at much more premium defensive positions.
Yes, that too. So, I don't know, man. There's just going to be so much to watch for to start off the Arizona stint. I'm really glad that we have guys like Jake Eisenberg down there breaking down the action. Also, Jack Johnson of Locked On Royals and A10 Sports, he's been doing a great job of keeping tabs on things. He's down there in Arizona. I'll be the first to admit I'm jealous as a son of a gun that he's down there covering them. But he's doing a good job.
Royals Review writer, I believe.
Well, who's down there from Royals Review?
Nobody.
Oh, okay. That's what I thought. Goodness gracious. Max, come on, man. Get us some more funding over here.
Lesky will go down there for a little while. He used to write for Royals Review. I think he's still in our Slack, so he might still be considered a contributor. I'm not sure.
Maybe so. I don't know. Oh, goodness gracious. But, Jeremy, do you have anything else that you want to talk about before spring training?
I just want to encourage everyone to give it a listen if you can. Especially for the MLB radio only broadcasts, they don't do commercials for those. So what you get is you get to listen. You get crowd noise in between innings, which is really cool to just listen to the sounds of the stadium, people talking, the vendors calling out, the pitches as the pitchers are warming up between innings, the music that's getting played. It just gives you all those baseball vibes that you can usually only get by being at the stadium. Because there's no one talking, in between innings because the announcer needs a break.
Yep.
I didn't really get to listen last year, but 2 years ago it was Stu, I think.
Okay.
It's I'm blanking on names all of a sudden.
That's okay.
Steve Stewart. He was calling the games all by himself, and he would just give way in between innings. And it was a good time. So if you're missing some baseball, there's a lot worse ways to enjoy it than listening to an MLB network only broadcast. And those are free for spring training. You do not have to pay for MLB radio. Just listen to the game.
Yep. Yeah, dude. Do you remember when people didn't like that no announcer, like Sunday morning baseball game on Peacock? Do you remember that?
I don't remember that. That sounds amazing.
I'll have to double check, but I remember there was a streaming service that, it was MLB Peacock game without announcers gets mixed reviews, and it was just noise, and you were there and you were watching the game with good camera angles. I will say it was
on a Sunday morning.
Yeah,
that sounds incredibly relaxing.
Yep,
sounds like a great way to spend a Sunday morning.
or excuse me, it might have been. It does say on Sunday. I remember it being on Sunday mornings.
Even a Sunday afternoon. It's a great way to spend a Sunday afternoon.
I agree, and it's just very cathartic. It's very serene.
I also remember that when they had the empty stadiums in the 2020 season, and I really advocated for don't put simulated crowd noise on the broadcast. Like let us hear it the way it is.
Yeah.
And I still kind of feel like that was a missed opportunity.
Hey, you gotta check Slack and see what I just sent you.
Oh no, what have you done to me now? Oh yeah. That was that was Quick Trip's response to Vinny there.
I didn't see that. For everyone out there who's not on social media, Quick Trip responded to Vinny Pasquantino tweeting at them, and they photoshopped, instead of the Salvi splash, it's a big gulp from Quick Trip getting dumped on Vinny Pasquantino. It's a pretty good job if I do say so.
I would support that. I would think that was hilarious.
Yeah, I would too.
I get it. It's product placement. I should be offended, but I would find that to be truly hilarious.
It's goofy. It's goofy. We all need a little goofiness.
Absolutely.
And that's why I remember
it would be I would like that celebration more than I like the gladiator helmet.
Ooh, okay. I can get behind that too. All right, man. Let's go ahead and get on out of here. Let's go ahead and get on out of here with some Royals review, shall we?
Let's do it.
All right, and if you don't mind, sir, go and start us off this evening.
I will start us off. All right, so I have to preface this with I'm not sure that I'm recommending it, but I think I am, but also I'll explain in a minute. I watched Has Been Hotel last weekend and early this week. It's 8 episodes, animated series on Amazon Prime. It is explicitly adult. It is very gory. It is full of cursing. It is very sexually explicit at times, though there are no visible genitalia that I can recall. And it's also a musical animated comedy. So there's a lot going on there. It's set in hell and follows a group of demons / condemned souls. They make no distinction between the two, really. And it's kind of set on a variation of Christianity where the angels come down once a year to just murder the condemned souls again. So the daughter of Satan, Charlie, decides to create a hotel where she's going to help the demons reform and become good people so that they can all be saved and go to heaven and stop being murdered by the angels.
All right.
And that's kind of the conceit, the opening conceit of the show. Like I said, it's 8 episodes. It is so explicitly adult. Do not show this to your children. This is not even like to me, this is not even like a, share it with your kids with parental supervision situation. This is a kids should not watch this probably kind of situation where like you definitely want to, I'm thinking 16 or older, like you want to understand like adult themes.
Yeah.
And the plot is very kind of meh. And so that combined with how very explicit it is makes it hard to necessarily recommend, but the characters are really interesting. And the music is fantastic.
Really?
I still have songs from it stuck in my head. So if that sounds vaguely interesting to you, it's worth checking out. Again, it's on Amazon Prime, so you have to have that if you want to watch it. And it's my biggest complaint, other than the stuff I've mentioned, is that it's too short. It should have been longer, just so it could explore some stuff a little bit deeper. But hopefully it gets a second season, and we'll go further from there.
I like it. So my review this evening is not a review from my personal experience, but just watching my wife put together this massive Lego Disney Castle. I helped out in the beginning stages. It was like this thing is 25 different stages, and I helped with like stage 1. That was about it, and she has taken it from there and ran with it. So I know Lego is a very enjoyable thing.
Yeah.
And it's just very expensive. So we don't do it very often, but when we do it big, and we do it properly. So Honey has gotten the Disney 100 version of this castle, which is 4,837 pieces. And it's really tall, 32 inches tall, and then 24 inches wide. It has moving parts throughout, and she says it's for our goddaughter. Our goddaughter is not even 2 years old yet, and this explicitly says 18 plus. So yeah, it's for our goddaughter, hun.
The thing I recommended is 18 years plus. Your thing is 18 months plus, right?
Oh, okay. You know what? I guess so, and that's why folks can hear very clearly in this episode.
I thought Legos used to be 3 years plus.
They used to be, and I'm sure,
but I guess you're allowed to choke when you're under 2 now.
I guess so. That's just how. No, man, it's probably for like skill level. All right. It's not choking.
Okay. Skill level. I thought we were talking like don't choke on the pieces, please.
No, but when she's old enough, she'll get to play with the whole thing.
Or
are you saying I can't choke on this Lego piece here, Jeremy?
I'd rather you didn't. Don't. Okay. What? I can't stop you. He's putting pieces in his mouth.
No, I'm not.
This is an audio medium, Jacob.
I'm just aggravating my wife, which everyone can hear in the background. But no, honestly,
now you all understand what I was saying at the beginning of the episode.
Yes, this is it's a very.
I'm not letting you help.
She is letting me help. I just haven't had an opportunity to in the past couple of days. It's a very, very beautiful set. If there's a Disney lover in your life that's going to sit down and have the space and the time to build this, and if you have the money, we never. $400 yeah, we never advocate going into debt. It's on back order. If you go into
debt for Legos, you are making probably some poor life choices.
Yes, which we all.
But also, I understand.
We've all made some poor life choices before.
No. Can I make a clarification?
Yes, honey.
Oh, dear.
It does cost $400, and that's before tax and shipping. And I saved for this set.
She did.
2 years.
She did. Like I said, when we don't do Legos often.
That's impressive self-restraint.
Yes. So
be aware, it's very expensive, but it is well worth it.
Yes, honey. All right, everyone out there.
Now it will take her another 2 years to build it.
Mm-hmm.
Nuh-uh.
Maybe 2 days. Maybe.
No, another week. I've been doing like 3 to 6 sections a day.
Mm-hmm. All righty, Jeremy. Well, as you can hear or see, my dogs are getting a little riled up. It is dinner time for them. It is dinner time for me. I'm sure it's dinner time for you too, my man. But thank you, as always, for joining me, Jeremy. If you folks want to follow Jeremy and his escapades on social media, you can find him at Hokius. That is Hokius on X. You can also find me on X at Jacob Milham KC. But the most important follow on X and social media is Royals Review on Facebook and X.
No, it's definitely me though.
Royals Review. Jeremy, no, we're not.
Follow. Excuse you.
Well, she's not on X, so I can't promote.
I am on Threads though.
She is on Threads. She is on.
Threads is nice.
I wish I was on X. I could use some X right now.
No, well, X is gonna give it to you. X is gonna give it to you. All right. All right, we need to get out of here.
Is that short for ecstasy? I feel like it should be.
No, it's the song. X gonna give it to you.
I don't know what that means.
Oh my gosh! All right, well, we're gonna get out of here while we're still on the high.
Please, can we please leave?
Yes, we can.